It was a very serious moment, and people were respectful. People stood for the Chief Justice. And then in groups of four, by alphabetical order, we went up and signed the book to show that we had actually taken this oath as a record of the oath. And I hope that all my colleagues take this very seriously. We have to get to the bottom of this. This is a trial. And when there's a trial, there's witnesses. And that is one of the things, as I looked over to my Republican colleagues, you know, you talk here and there, and a few of them have put out signals publicly that they are open to witnesses. I don't know how you have a trial if you don't have witnesses. And I mean, one of the counts that we will be looking at is obstruction of Congress, with the whole idea, when you look at when you read the count, is the fact that this administration is the first time in history has literally blocked people from testifying, blocked documents that people have. And so, as I said at the debate the other night in Iowa, you know, you may as well give him a crown and a scepter and just call him king if you're not going to do your constitutional duty. So I'm just hoping that everyone had that moment to sit back, whatever their predispositions are, and think about what this is. It's a trial, and we should look at evidence.
We just had a former federal prosecutor at the beginning of this discussion tonight talk about how it's witnesses like Lev Parnas, in her experience in prosecutions, who lead you to the doors that you should open, doors like Rick Perry. Yes. John Bolton we already knew about, but we learned more from Lev Parnas that Donald Trump told John Bolton to fire the ambassador, and John Bolton refused to do it. I'd like to hear John Bolton's version of that. He's on your witness list already.
He is.
What about Rick Perry? When you hear Lev Parnas saying Rudy Giuliani told Lev Parnas that he told Rick Perry. Rick Perry's the person who knows the answer to those things.
And actually, the Department of Energy is one of the agencies mentioned. When you look at the report that we got today from the Inspector General, where they have said that there is a legal issue here, that the Trump administration violated the law. They're a non-partisan agency in not providing this information and blocking the money from going to Ukraine and not following the rules of informing Congress. And then you look at the counts of the indictment, and there you have blockage again of information going to Congress. It just keeps going. And one of those agencies is the Department of Energy. And one of the people that we would like to hear from, of course, is the Secretary of Energy, and that's Rick Perry. And I thought that Rachel's point was very good. You know, it would take a long time to parse through all of the bits of the interview there, and I would love to get to the bottom of it as a former prosecutor, and we should. But at least we should be getting to the principles that have the information.
Yeah, I mean, as it is, Chuck Schumer only asked for 4 witnesses, John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, and then Michael Duffy, an OMB official, Robert Blair, a White House official. But when you listen to Lev Parnas, it seems to me that Lev Parnas should be at least deposed and could easily be deposed over the course of this weekend and see when he's under oath and he's challenged, and deposition means lawyers from both sides. Let him be challenged by the other side and see what happens.
And I think Senator Schumer said he didn't rule that out today. But the point is, right now, they aren't giving us any witnesses. And I think the more this information comes forward, everything from the Inspector General's report to what we heard in this interview, to the information that just keeps coming at us that we already had from the House, it is outrageous that we are not getting a trial yet. And my colleagues, you know, I look across from, we're literally a few yards away. This is their moment to decide. And at the same time, you have the press being blocked out from certain parts of this, and all a bunch of bad stuff going on that doesn't feel like it's a fair trial.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.